are Ms. Girija Gopinath. She is a highly organized, self-motivated, and senior leader. She enjoys challenges and introducing new initiatives and strategies in process improvement and thus raising the bar in the value chain. Her experience in education management began in 2014 July at Kangaroo Kids as head of franchise business operations, where she managed a chain of preschool and K-12 schools. During this period, she also pursued her passion for transaction analysis, yoga, mediation, and now mindfulness. A very warm welcome, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, we have Vrinda Loiwal. She is an alumnus of Harvard Graduate School of Education and the Gandhi Fellowship, with rich ground experience in building positive school cultures. In the pursuit of inculcating 21st century skills and social emotional learning in school education, Ms. Vrinda's work experience spans conducting action research, instructional design, curriculum, and assessment design, explicit classroom instruction, and developing informal learning projects. A very warm welcome.
A very warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists. So the theme of today's panel is enhancing self-regulation capabilities. As we know that self-regulation can be defined in various ways, but if I were to put it in the most basic sense, I think it's safe to say that it involves controlling one's behaviors, emotions, and thoughts in the pursuit of long-term goals. So it has to be in a way that would help us achieve our goals, that is more constructively. More specifically, emotional self-regulation refers to the ability to manage disruptive emotions and impulses. With this, I'd like to pose the opening question for all our panelists. And the question is, what is self-regulation and how does it impact the growth of a child? We'd like to begin with Ms. Girija.
All right. So first and foremost, let me thank Kushi for a great introduction. Gratitude to Neve, Mr. Ashish Sen, Anuradha for inviting me. Snowy, a pleasure to have you here again. And the co-panelist, Vrinda and Anubhati. Honored to meet you here. Thank you so much. So Snowy, according to me, emotional regulation, is also known as self-regulation, right? And it's the ability to monitor and manage one's thoughts, feelings, energy state, and behavior in a manner that is acceptable and produce positive results, such as well-being, loving relationships, and learning. So if we want to try and break this into very simple terms, emotional regulation allows us to understand behavior, manage those behavior, understand feelings, manage the different kind of feelings that we experience, understand our reactions to the feelings, also manage the reactions to those feelings, which we term as response, and understand situations, that is what's going on around us, which means an awareness of the environment. What exactly is happening here is that there is a stimuli from the environment, which is external. One makes sense of the stimuli, which is internal. How? Cognitively, by understanding it, emotionally, by feeling and sensing it. One chooses then an appropriate coping mechanism, which is internal, which is also called a balancing act. So when one is able to do all this, we call that person emotionally regulated, or a better term, emotionally literate. Self-regulation is just one part of being emotionally literate. So if I have to decode self-regulation, I would say it is the ability to keep our emotions in check, resist impulsive behavior that may worsen the situation for self and for others, ability to cheer oneself when one is feeling low, down, have a flexible range of emotions, emotional behavior responses, and also, most importantly, understanding how our behavior impacts environment and situations, and also take cues from environment and situations as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Those were some wonderful insights on or opening remarks, I'd rather say. So, Miss Vrinda, what would you like to tell us about the question?
Well, like Ms. Girija said, self-regulation is only a part of understanding yourself and self-awareness. I think the reason that it's important to talk about self-regulation, particularly in children's context, is because there are a lot of situations that children and adults find themselves in. It could be, let's say, failing a test in school, where the child may experience disappointment, um, or begin to lose hope in oneself. And in those moments of failure that every child and adult sometime in their lifetime experiences, it's important to follow the ruler approach. For example, the Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence has something called the ruler approach. Recognize what I'm feeling, understand where it's coming from, label it. This I like a lot. Label, is it disappointment that I'm feeling? Is it hurt that I'm feeling? Or is it anger that I'm feeling? Disappointment comes from an unmet expectation, but anger comes from a feeling of injustice. So there are these very subtle differences in the source of our feelings. And are we able to label our emotions correctly? Are we able to understand where they're coming from? E for express. I might be feeling disappointed, but in what way am I expressing it that is appropriate, not just for myself, but people around me in the context that I'm in? And appropriateness, I think of not as, what is the right thing to do, or what is the, what will look nice in front of everyone, but rather, what is the impact that my actions will have on myself and on others around me? So, if I'm disappointed, I could go break a glass, or I could perhaps sit with it, maybe journal why I'm feeling disappointed and process those feelings. And both of those actions have entirely different consequences and impacts on myself and on others. So what is the right way for me in this situation to express how I'm feeling? And one more thing I'd like to say on this E point is, particularly in our culture, I think, adults are allowed to get angry, kids are not. Or adults are allowed to have disappointments, but kids are not. I know that this was my experience when I was growing up as well. And so there's almost a culture of suppression that I think is particularly so for collectivistic cultures like ours, where a lot of us grow up being allowed to express any of our happy emotions or excitement or joy and pride, but we are conditioned to not express our tough emotions like disappointment. And whatever is suppressed ultimately leads to shame somewhere down the line. So expression is important, but appropriate expression is important. And the last, alphabet in the acronym ruler is R, which is regulate, which is again that now that I've understood, labeled, recognized my emotion, can I know how to deal with it 5 minutes later, a day later? Can I process the emotion? Can I process the thoughts around it? Can I notice how my body is feeling when I'm feeling this emotion in the moment versus also a day later when maybe the intensity of the emotion has gone down? And how do I regulate that? I'll pause.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Vrinda. I think that the Yale ruler has become somewhat of a yardstick whenever we talk about like teaching kids how to regulate emotions, among with other activities that we have. Stuff like a moodometer is something again that we try and use when we want to help children regulate their emotions. So without taking much of your time, I'd like to pose the same question to Miss Anubhuti Dwivedi, and we all would love to know your insight on the same.
Thank you, Snowy. And it was really good to hear out Girija and Vrinda giving in their inputs. So obviously that they have said a lot about what self-regulation is. But to top it up, what I would say is it's nothing much. It's just like that, doing things without feeling forced to do it. So how it matters is like when we say our kids don't do this, do that, or do it this way, do it that way, that's forceful direction, right? And at times with our anger, at times with our aggression or our background, it becomes very strict and forced. Now, self-regulation is where the same things are being done